So do you find that there's a lot of disconnects between businesses and organizations, between the kind of, like you said, the marketing channels and that kind of thing to the front line? And also, do you find data silos, especially in sort of today's kind of hybrid world, that kind of your platform sits in the middle of and solves that problem?
Yeah, so the answer is yes, yes, and yes. So I would say one stat that I think is important to throw out is 80%. We did research a few years ago, just before the pandemic. I guess nothing counts before the pandemic, I suppose. But at the time when we did that research, what we found was marketing and customer experience executives, 80% of them said that they cannot achieve their goals in their roles as marketers and customer experience people if the front lines don't execute. 80% said my success hinges upon the frontline teams embracing and executing the programs that we are putting out. So think about that. 8 and 10 are saying that they need these folks. They cannot market their way to success. They truly need there to be buy-in and alignment through the organization. And what we've seen from, so I'll start with sort of some of the trends that we've seen in the data. One of the things that we've seen that's an interesting insight is they're not as misaligned as you might think. Okay, I think that our average alignment score is like 76%, so 24% misalignment, so low 20s in terms of misalignment. The range is, I think we've been from 55% on the low end to 93% on the high end is the range. So people always say to us, well, we think that we would thought that would have been higher. So what we're finding is the misalignment isn't necessarily always huge, but the places where you have misalignment is important to pinpoint. So the score in and of itself is worthless. But when we start getting underneath it, a couple things that we find consistently are a lot of times misalignment is driven by leadership teams rating the performance of their value proposition, whatever the key attributes are, the colors that they offer, the price they offer, the quality of the product they have, whatever the case may be. We're finding leadership teams rating their performance significantly lower than the front lines. So we're seeing that anxiety around how good the offering is, how strong they are in the marketplace, primarily coming or predominantly coming from the leadership teams. So that's driving discussions with the leadership team saying, why did you rate this so low? Well, we're new in market with this product. We're not really proven. And we're like, well, wait a second. You're wondering where there might be friction or lack of adoption at the front lines, and you're recognizing some of these challenges yourself. That's where we do the translation to say, okay, if you're not certain that you can blow the marketplace away around this attribute, let's talk about how to get your team to gather evidence. Let's give them evidence of where you're strong. Let's give them evidence of where you might be seeing success in the marketplace. So what we're finding a lot of times is the anxiety starts from the leadership team. And if anxiety starts from the leadership team, guess what? That rolls downhill. So we're able to diagnose the fact that the leadership team has some of their own sort of soul searching to do before they can get their frontline teams on board.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've been in from the marketing side, so the marketing side of things, and it's interesting that when you have that almost that anxiety from above, you kind of feel it. And if you're getting feedback from the frontline teams who are kind of almost re-emphasizing actually the direction you're trying to take is either the right one or the wrong one, you can get the feedback. At least it gives you some sort of idea of what you're doing and where you are with regards to your campaigns or the marketing you're doing, because you do sometimes it
Yeah.
is hard to get buy-in across the organization. It's really difficult unless you have that feedback. There'll always be people who have that anxiety or they're not quite sure, that kind of thing. That alignment is not there.
Well, I think so. To your point, Chris, it's a great point. We've started originally. We were talking about building in front, sort of the premise behind it. We talked about it as a gap analysis tool. That one, it oversimplifies it. It's not actually entirely accurate. Um, because just as many times as we're finding significant gaps, we're also finding validation from the front lines on certain messages. And when we talk to people, they say, well, this has become a scorecard on me as a marketer, or is this sort of a check for, the front lines can, tell us how good of a job we're doing? And we're like, it's not any of that. And really, when you think about it, the value of validating your message is as valuable, if not even more valuable, than finding a gap. Because if you can validate, and we've had plenty of studies where we validated that a marketer said, most of the products in this space are very similar. I have a very unique differentiator. And what we found from their team was the team recognized the unique differentiator, had confidence that it was a unique differentiator, and was talking about that as the differentiator. And the leader said, the fact that they're not talking about some of these other things that even they may see as being more important to the customer, I don't care because I'm at least good enough to be in the conversation. What I need is to stand out. I don't need to go to head with these competitors that have been in the market for 20 years on sort of the core table stakes attributes. I need to come in with a story that's a little bit different. And it validated that the difference and that differentiator was resonating with their sales teams. So he was able, the head of marketing was able to say, let's go. Let's lean into this message even more. Let's push them to tell this story even more because all he wanted was to be different. He needed to be different. So this idea of validating your story, I shared a clip on LinkedIn fairly recently that one of the studies that we did for a manufacturing client of ours validated that their brand message was resonating. And they actually named one of their next product lines the validation line because they were validated in the fact that they saw that progress. They saw their sales partners, in this case it was retail partners, really buying in. So they launched a product called the validation series to commemorate that. So validation is as important as finding gaps.
Yeah, and that's got to be amazing as well for the kind of the internal morale, the internal synergy between the different departments that sometimes can sort of grow when you have those different departments. It kind of brings people together. If you're on the same team and you've got that alignment, like you said, it's got to really improve culture, motivation, productivity, all these things. Are they some of the things you see that increase in organizations that have that on the same page?
Absolutely. So the phrase that one of our clients uses, and we have like a client advisory committee that guides us on the in-front product. And one of our longstanding clients told us, if this becomes a tool for systematic collaboration between me as a marketer and all these channels that I need, to buy into my, my product set and my messaging, you've done something. If you can build a systematic collaboration tool and think about what that does for an organization, you're a marketer and you're driving strategy and you want to build trust. You want to gain buy-in. You want to gain engagement. I mean, and those are all buzzwords that people might think are intangible, but they really need engagement. They need people paying attention and actively choosing to put time and effort into talking about their products and services. That's what he needs as a product brand manager. He's in the manufacturing space. So if you think about systematic collaboration and helping to foster that, it builds trust between the two groups. It opens up the dialogue, and you find yourself in a spot where your frontline teams feel heard. By hearing them, you're able to provide them with better support, better tools. They in turn deliver a better experience to the customers, an experience they feel better about when they stand in front of a customer, which makes them feel better about their work, which makes them trust the marketing team even more. And it becomes this virtuous cycle. And I know it sounds a little bit sort of pie in the sky, but it's all intuitive, right? I don't think any of your listeners would argue that if you listen to somebody, you respond to them in a reasonable fashion, you support them in the ways that they're asking for, they can do their job better. They serve customers better. They're happier in their job. They stay longer. They're better to work with. They're more engaged. They perform better. All of those things are the byproducts of what we're doing.